All right, welcome back. In this video, we are going to learn about two-dimensional arrays. And first, I guess we'll talk about what a two-dimensional array is. Well, on the right here, you see something that you might call a table of numbers. Some people might call it a chart. If you're a math student, you may call this a matrix. If you have studied vectors, calculus and vectors, you've probably studied matrices. Or you might call it a grid of values. Okay, but in computing, we often call this a two-dimensional array or a 2D array. So that's what I'm going to refer to this as, a two-dimensional array. So we've studied one-dimensional arrays. Well, a 2D array just has rows and columns, and we number the rows with indexes. So this is row 0, row 1, and row 2. So rows go horizontally. So a lot of people confuse rows and columns. So the rows. Let me just get my mouse here. This is row 0 across the top. And then row 1 is through the middle, and then row 2 is the bottom row. So they go sideways. And then columns are going to run vertically. So this is column 0, column 1, column 2, and column 3. So we would say that this 2D array has 3 rows, so 3 horizontal rows, and 4 vertical columns. All right, so we need to make sure we're all on the same page with that. Now, how do I create a 2D array using Java code? Well, it's important first to understand that a 2D array is actually just a 1D array. And for the purpose of this, I'm going to draw the array. I always draw the arrays sideways, but I'm going to draw this array kind of vertically here. So imagine we have just a 1D array like this. But instead of filling up this array with integers or with doubles or with strings, instead of that, we're going to fill this up with arrays of size 4. Okay, so each spot in my original array has an array of size 4 in it. So this is index 0, 1, 2, and then we can draw these indexes as well if you'd like. Okay, and then to kind of stay in line with my example here, the first array would have the numbers 13, 5, 7, 9, 10, 3, 1, 6, 2, 8, 5, and 14. Okay, so really, we just have a one-dimensional array filled with one-dimensional arrays. And that's what a 2D array is. So how would I write the code for this? Well, if I just make that first array, let's pretend that's called, let's call this grid. Let's say the name of my 2D array is called grid. So over here, if I just make that first 1D array, that we would do something like this. Of size 3. Okay, that first array that I drew is of size 3. But we don't want to fill it with ints. So the data type here would not be int, it would not be double, it would not be char. What we want to fill it with are int arrays. So each spot in my array is an array. So all I do is instead of int, I write int bracket bracket. So that's my data type right there. So instead of double or string or char or int, we write int square bracket square bracket. So that's the type of array my 1D array is. So a little bit hard to get your head around, but it's really just a 1D array in which the data type is an int array itself. So in order to get this to work, we need to put a second pair of square brackets with the second dimension in there. So basically this tells us how big are the arrays inside your array. So basically we're saying how many columns we have. Okay, if you were to go back up to this this example up here, we'd be asking how many columns we have. Okay, so now how do I populate this array? Well, I'm going to say grid at index 0 is assigned. I'm sorry, grid 0, 0. So we're going to have two coordinates. So this is going to be the row, and this is going to be the column. So that's going to be a 13. All right, grid row 0, column 1, that's going to be a 5. Okay, so I'm basically going across the row. I'm going across row 0. So that's going to be a 7. And grid at 0, column 3 is going to be a 9. 9. Now that will put the top row in, and just to speed this up, I'm going to do the second row here, but I need to change that to, this is row 1, and then the values are going to be 10, 3, 1, and 6. Okay, and then I'll just paste it one more time, and so this is going to be row 2. And so the bottom row is going to have a 2, an 8, a 5, and a 14. Okay, and there. So there I have 12 lines of code, and that will populate my 2D array with all of the numbers in the picture. Now, there is a shorter way to do this. There's a shortcut. You can use an initializer list, just like you can with one-dimensional arrays. So I could get rid of all this and just say int and then 2 pairs of square brackets, grid is assigned, and then I'm going to use my curly brace, and I'll put a closed one, and then inside here you basically put 3 arrays. So I'm going to have another curly brace and say 13, comma 5, comma 7, comma 9, and then close that. So this is my first array, comma, and then I have my second array, so 10, 3, 1, 6, comma, and then I put my third array, so 2, 8, 5, 14. Okay, and then I put a semicolon at the end. Oh yeah, I did that already. So I'm going to get rid of those two and just pull that back. Okay, so that just make the font a bit smaller. Okay, so this one line of code will do all of this for you. So it's up to you. Some people don't like initializer lists because it may be a little bit confusing. Some people like this because it's a little more laid out better. It's a little more organized, but it is a lot more code. So you can use either. You should know both ways how to create a 2D array. So of course, a 2D array, you could easily change that to a double, and then you could make a 2D array of double values, or you could make it a string, and then you could put strings in here. So same things that you can do with one-dimensional arrays. And then of course you can make methods on 2D arrays. So what I want to do is I want to make my first method that I want to make is a print array method. Right? So I want to be able to run this, and I want it, oh, this is going to crash because I have 2 grids. So I'm going to take off all this stuff here. Okay, so what if I want to print my 2D array? Well, first of all, we have to ask, well, how do we want to print it? How do we want it to look? Well, I would like it to look just like in my drawing over here. So I would like it to print like a 13, and then maybe a tab, and then the 5, and then a tab 7, a tab 9, and then go to the new line and do the next row and the next row. So I would love it to be printed just like this. Okay, so how would we go about doing this? Well, I'm going to open up array methods. Let me just make sure I have the right one. Okay, and I just want to keep my table visible there. Okay, and let's go to the top, and we'll do our new method, public static void print array, but this time it's instead of taking a regular 1D array, it's just going to take in a 2D array. And once again, it's not actually taking in the array, it's just taking in the reference. So that, that little square reference, if I go back to my Word document, it's going to be this thing. Hopefully you can see my pen moving around. It's a bit fussy. There, this is the reference here. So that's actually what we're passing to the method, not this entire 2D array, but just the reference. And then again, ARR is going to be a copy. So when I call the print array method, a copy is made. So ARR is going to be pointing to the same place as grid. Okay, so what would this code look like? Well, we would need a loop inside of a loop. Okay, so I'll put this here first. And then inside we're going to have another loop. So this is the basic structure. Okay, so now what I would recommend is you make your first loop represent the row indexes. Okay, so I'm going to call that I, and I'm going to make that start at 0. Now, what's it going to go up to? Well, remember that a 2D array, once again, is just a 1D array filled with arrays. So you basically want I to visit these numbers, 0, 1, and 2. So these are the row indexes. So basically, you want I to go up to arr.length. So in your code, I is just going to go up to arr.length, kind of like what we've been doing all this time. And then I++. All right, so then we want j to visit the row indexes, or indices. So you can't say arr.length. You can't do that because then that's just going to be the row indexes. So how do I get the column indices, or these numbers down here? Once again, I hope you can see. Yeah. So we want these numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3. Well, all we have to do is say ARR at 0, or you can put any valid row index in here. Even safer than that is to put I in here. So basically, I is the row index. So we're basically going into the first array, and we're determining how long the second array is. Okay. So yeah, this is going to when we say arri.length, that's going to represent the length of these arrays inside the first array. So that will do the trick. That will go from 0 up to, but not including 4. So it'll go 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now I want to print ARR at ij. So row I, column j, followed by a tab. And we want to just say print to just keep it on the same line. And then when this inner loop is done, in other words, once I've printed a whole row, I want to go to a new line, like this. Okay, so that should work. Let's just give it a go and see. Okay, here I am back here. So this is called two-dimensional arrays. Okay, and I run that. And there we go. 13, 5, 7, 9, 10, 3, 1, 6, 2, 8, 5, 14. Yes, and that's what I have here. So there is a, that's kind of the first most popular method that we want to create is print array. So we're going to have an exercise where you're going to create other methods that work with two-dimensional arrays as well. So I'll stop here and I'll let you have some practice with this, and we'll see you in the next video.